All right. Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain a question from support the claim support the conclusion topic, and the question is taken from the file most repetitive questions file. So I'll be making each specific video for the questions there, and like stay tuned for the next video as well. And let's start this one. So the first action you should do is to read the question. Which finding from the study, if true, would most likely support the conclusion? This is like a support one, and there is like the other one also like weakening question type, and it's from information and ideas part. So this part is the question is from information and ideas topic. So which usually include the questions from 8 to 15 in both modules. This is like around like approximate range. And there are two types as well. First one is like no, like including no and if truth, like which finding from the study most likely support the conclusion. In this one, you should only focus on the evidence given in the text and support it based on the details here. But the second one is like this, which include if true. So it means your examples in the options might somehow be outside the text. So like some examples given in the options might not be entire like directly given in the text, but the core idea should still be given. Like if true, like imagine these four options are, let's say, generally true, but whether they are logical based on the text or no, you should find the most logical one given among four options. So this is like a small difference between if true and no if true question types. And this is like first action is reading the question. You don't have to take a look at the options because it can be destructive. Like if you take a look at the options and read the options without reading the text, like the chances you make mistake might be really high. So at least it's not my technique. So second action is reading the text. Second action, let's start reading the text. You don't have to look at the options at all in this point. And let's make it above. Okay. Neurobiologist Laura Raul Hernandez Perez and colleagues investigated the language detection abilities of 18 dogs raised in similar settings. So from the first sentence, there is the introduction part about the research, and really important part is this part, like raised in similar settings. So if they're like dogs are raised in like were raised in a similar setting, that gives more credibility for the research. So there is like introduction part, intro. Yeah, the researchers monitored the brain activity of Sander, a golden retriever, Alma, how to pronounce, or like a mixed breed, and other dogs, wild animals listened to the three recordings. Listened to three recordings. One of The Little Prince being read in Spanish. This is language. The second one in Hungarian. This is also language. And the third made up of short, randomly selected fragments of the first two. So they combined some parts from Spanish and some parts from Hungarian, scrambled so that they did not resemble human speech. So if they do not resemble human speech, they are not language. They do not resemble human speech, also really important. Third one is not language, it's just maybe different sounds or voice. Each dog was familiar with either Spanish or Hungarian, but not both. So, like, none of the dogs in the study is familiar with both languages, at least, or maybe like one. The team concluded that amount of previous language exposure. So this part is also going to be a really important part in our question. Previous language exposure a dog has received may influence its ability to distinguish familiar languages. All right. So what I'm gonna highlight here is the first part, familiar languages from unfamiliar languages. Familiar languages to unfamiliar languages in the text. So these are the essential parts of the text, and below I'm going to also highlight what I've taken here. So research methodology. So just read research methodology included two languages. And non-speech. This one is scrambled from both languages. Non-speech. Okay, this one is not a language, and we got two languages. It can be first one Spanish. Second one is Hungarian. This is our research methodology, including like with research with 18 dogs, including two languages, Spanish and Hungarian. Each of dogs is familiar with either Spanish, Hungarian, but none of this like familiar with both at the same time. And non-speech, like scrambled from both languages so that they do not resemble human speech means it's like not it's not a language. So what else is important here? We have taken anything till this part. Each dog was familiar with not this part. The team concluded the amount of previous language exposure. So what we can with previous language exposure, usually in the question, maybe like since it's a module 2 question, they might not directly state the same thing. They might not like say previous language exposure in your options. It might be, let's say, paraphrase in a different way. So previous, we are saying basically previous. Previous might relate the idea to time, right? It might be related to time. It might be related to time. Previous means, let's say, for a longer time. So previous language exposure a dog has received. Maybe we can say young dogs, right? Younger dogs might have less previous exposure because they might only live, let's say, a few years, and then after that they might be, let's say, older dogs. Less previous exposure. And older dogs, okay, older dogs, they might have more, let's say, exposure or previous exposure. Exposure means the time they spent, like the time they spent on, let's say, learning a language or familiar or unfamiliar. So younger dogs on older dogs, the team concluded that the amount of previous language exposure dog has received, meaning the difference between younger to older. So the difference between younger to older has received may influence. There is also like influence means may like make a change in its ability to distinguish familiar languages from unfamiliar language. So there should be difference between younger and older in what? In the case, I'm gonna write it below, the like distinguish between familiar. Also, keep in mind that familiar, same thing as previous, might be just paraphrased because, like, again, this is module 2 question, and you should be ready for everything in the text. It's stated in, let's say, B2 language or like simple language, but in the options, it might be given different. Maybe like it can be different, same, it can be different, it can be given same or different. So just be ready to get any variation. So distinguish between familiar and unfamiliar. There should be a change between younger to older in distinguishing between familiar and unfamiliar. So unfamiliar. This is what I've taken from the text. There is no more important idea. I have written every like idea and described it in like specific details in more understandable language. Now, after second action, there comes third action, and the last action is to check each option specifically. Third action. Third action is read the like 4 options and like be careful with each detail. Sometimes there might be, let's say, whole almost full like option, maybe 80% or 90% correct, but small details, a few words might make the entire choice like false at the end. So let's check them one by one. What we want to say is that between younger and older, there should be some difference. Maybe younger dogs are, let's say, more advanced, maybe older dogs are more advanced. So it's about like influencing in its ability between the languages. And also keep in mind that in the option, there should not be idea about non-speech because our conclusion is entirely about familiar and unfamiliar language. So if we can say familiar is Spanish, then unfamiliar should be Hungarian or the reverse case. But scramble recording is not a language. It should mean that conclusion is only like pointing to language, but not to non-speech. So there are also other variations of this question. In those variations, there were sayings about non-speech. There were sayings about non-speech in the conclusion part, and the answer was like naturally a different answer. But right now we are like focused on familiar and unfamiliar languages, not non-speech. So you should also be careful with that case. Okay, now focus fully on the options and which is detailed. A option, the difference between the pattern of brain activity a dog showed when hearing the language it was accustomed to. So what we can say about it was accustomed to? It was accustomed to, okay, this point. It was accustomed to, we can highlight this part, relating it to what idea? Relating to, let's say this is familiar one, right? Accustomed to, you when you're accustomed to, let's say you have more exposure and you can be familiar. So there is a difference. Also, what part is important, we need to highlight the difference because it's about influencing, right? And the pattern of brain activity it showed when hearing the language it was not accustomed to. Okay, here comes another part, it was not accustomed to, and this part defines something unfamiliar. It was not accustomed to this part. You should understand this part as something unfamiliar. Okay, there's a change. There is a difference between familiar and unfamiliar in what dogs was greatest among older dogs. Right now, we are saying, let's say, among was greatest. We are using a superlative degree. We are using a superlative degree. There is like a big change among older dogs. So, like we are saying older dogs, then it should also mean like compared to maybe younger dogs. So we are not like specifically setting that. There is no need to specify because older we are using superlative degree, and it should state all the ideas here among older dogs. So it's saying that like when they get like older, when have they more exposure, there should be a change. There should be a difference in their, let's say, brain activity, pattern of brain activity. And I feel like A option is logical. So right now I'm gonna underline A option, and if there is no any stronger, like equally strong or like strong option, like in B, C, D options, then we have to choose A option, right? So let's take a look at B option. I cannot find anything wrong with A option right now because everything seems fine and logical based on the text and the question, like support the conclusion. So B option. The similarity between the pattern of brain activity a dog showed in response to hearing the scramble recording. I feel like this part should be now not based on the conclusion though. Scramble recording is not a language. The similarity between the brain activity showed in response to hearing the scramble recording, I'm gonna yeah, so make it clear. Okay, and the pattern of brain activity it showed in response to hearing the language it was not accustomed to. Okay, it's taking an unfamiliar one. It's taking an unfamiliar one. This part might be partially logical. Why partial logical was greatest among older dogs? So, like the structure of the option might seem familiar to A option, like the structure of the option might seem familiar, and also it's saying like similarity. But we are talking about essentially about like what influencing. So there should be more than similarity thing. And also B option, there is a problem. So what is the problem? Problem is that it does not say anything about familiar languages because it's only talking about scrum recording, which is not language, and about unfamiliar languages. But where is the familiar language, which is highlighted in the conclusion about familiar language? So it doesn't say anything about familiar language. This is also a problem, in addition to scramble recording, which is really not needed. B option is going to, like, it's out. So C option, although the dog's general hearing sensitivity declined with age, okay, dog's general sensitivity, this part might be logical. Right now, the first part is logical. Um, so although dogs' general hearing sensitivity declined with age, okay, it's showing influence over age. And the first part, um, so first part, It's logical, and this is how College Board might, like the test creators might trick you. They might make the initial part as seeming logical, but let's see the last part. If it's also logical, then it might be equal to correct or like more logical than A option. So let's read the other part also. Dogs of all ages. So it's saying dogs of all ages, like young, old, like medium age, doesn't matter. All ages showed more brain activity in response to hearing the language they were accustomed to in response to hearing the other language. All right, the structure feels so, structure feels familiar and structure feels good. In response to hearing the language they were accustomed to, now they were accustomed to, it's familiar, right? This is one is familiar language. This one is familiar language. Then in response to hearing the other language is also saying language, then other one should be unfamiliar one, unfamiliar one. So when you see these highlights, you might have an idea that C option might also be logical, and you might have like some, well, like some tendency to compare to A option, but you should not rush in this point, because there is two words. There is like a problem with some words which might make the entire choice, entire like C option wrong. The words are all and age. It's like all ages. This is a problem. This is a problem because if we take this entirely as, let's say, logical, then our choice doesn't say anything about previous language exposure. So I relate the idea of previous to time, right? Like over time, they might get older. It's about like relating the like exposure to time, time to, let's say, their age. Now, C option wouldn't say anything about, let's say, exposure if we take all ages as something logical. That's why saying all ages showed more brain activity in response to hearing their language they were accustomed to, and then hearing the other language, it doesn't really show an influence about previous language exposure. So that's why this part might be just something illogical, right? Okay, like take a look at the option as well, and we can review the C fully and decide the final, have a final decision. Dogs showed a different pattern of brain activity when hearing the language they were accustomed to. Okay, when they were accustomed to, this is familiar one. And when hearing the Scrum recording, okay, Scrum recording is out because this is not language. And the difference in brain activity increased with the age of the dog scans. And last part might be logical, although last part is logical. The Scrum recording is not among the languages. That's why, so no information. Problem is no information about unfamiliar language. In terms of C option, we can take a look at the conclusion one more time. The team concludes that the amount of previous language exposure a dog has received may influence its ability to distinguish familiar languages from unfamiliar languages. Now, like we need to say something without, let's say, contrast, without more of like comparison. In just one statement, say that the maybe younger or older dogs have like difference between distinguishing all like familiar and unfamiliar languages. What C doing is that although the dog's general hearing, it's about like general hearing sensitivity. Like, do we really need it? Like the question, whole question, also general hearing sensitivity. We can take a look at this one also one more time. General hearing sensitivity also might be some really not needed. We need, so we need exactly, we need, so we need the info about a change in distinguishing. It is taking a look about like general hearing sensitivity, but conclusion is specifically referring to its ability to distinguish familiar. It should be about the ability. Also, like I'm gonna highlight this one more time. It is ability to distinguish. Its ability to distinguish. This part is also really important. So each word in the text is chosen very like carefully and to give you an overall idea in a better way. And C option also the dog's general hearing sensitivity. This part might refer to the overall like the general hearing sensitivity, not specific to its ability to distinguish two, let's say, languages. And like this also all edges is wrong. General hearing sensitivity is also like maybe exaggerated way. Yeah. So although C's like option C's structure is similar to A option, A in this case in this context is more logical and based on the text. So I'm gonna choose A option as the logical option and not B, C, D. So this is wrong. This one is also wrong. This one is also wrong. And the logical option is right now, just yeah. A option is the most logical option. So I hope it was like this video explanation was useful and at least you learned where to focus on and where not to focus on. And stay tuned for the next video series and see you.